Hello and welcome back to the channel of nonsense, where today we're discussing the thorny topic of the Toyota Supra. The new one has been out for about 2 years now, and it kind of had its moment, didn't it, in the influencer spotlight, where people bought them, put wraps on them, did the dodgy watch photo on the steering wheel, and it kind of faded into the background a bit because people realised the Porsche Cayman was a bit better to drive, even the 4-cylinder Porsche Cayman. Now Toyota has responded with its very own 4-cylinder version. It's lighter, it is cheaper, and motoring journalists with elbow patches will say, oh, it's the pick of the range. Now, are they right, or are they boring men who put print on dead trees? Let's find out. Here it is then, an old man in lycra. No, sorry, Toyota Supra. This is it, a £46,000 car. So it's a good £7 or so cheaper than the 3-litre one. This has one option on it, which is £620 of red paint. Now, I went on the international launch of this car, the 3-litre version, back in 2019. I had a good chat with the chief engineer of Gazoo Racing, because this is a Gazoo racing car. It's got a badge on the back and everything. That guy's called Tetsuya Tada, or Tada-san, and he told me some things. First up are the 3 things that they needed to make the Supra do, according to him. It needed to be dramatic yet compact. It was designed to have as much track width as possible, so if you're not a complete nerd, it's the width between the tyres. It needed to be as wide as possible. For grip, it needed to have a short wheelbase for agility, and it needed to have a low centre of gravity. So that's why it kind of looks like this, and it's got that classic sports car thing of a big phallic bonnet and the seats basically over the back axle. And they also wanted to try and get it 50-50 weight distribution for classic sports car handling. And they achieved that thanks to the use of lots of aluminium kind of up here on the nose. Speaking of which, this weighs about 1.4 tonnes, or 100 kilos less than the 3-litre. So yeah, it does weigh a fair bit less. Now, it's very rigid. It's more rigid than a Lexus LFA, and it's especially got a very rigid front end. Despite all of that cool stuff, it does share a lot with the BMW Z4, which was obviously a cause for massive consternation among idiots on Facebook when it came out. So Toyota did make this in conjunction with BMW and the latest Z4, and they couldn't have made the Supra without doing so, because it would have cost a fortune to develop their own engine. It would have taken years and years and years, and by the time it came out, petrol engines would almost be dead, so it would be muted and silenced even more than it already is. That said, there are some key differences between this and the Bavarian cousin. It gets its own bespoke Michelin Pilot Super Sport tyre with a stiffer sidewall. It gets stiffer wheel bearings, it gets some slightly different suspension stuff, and obviously it gets a hard roof. Now inside it's still as strict a 2-seater as my birthday parties tend to be. So yeah, it's not the world's most practical car. It is a sports car, but things aren't all bad. The boot's actually a pretty decent size. What's good and bad, it's 290 litres, but you have to open it using a button inside or the key, and when it does pop, it doesn't open at all. You have to go like this. So yeah, 290 litres of space for your stuff. It's actually quite big, and you can fold the parcel shelf away if you want and tuck it, I guess, behind the front seat. But there we go, a vaguely practical sports car. There's the Gazoo Racing badge to confirm it as such, and it looks just like the 3-litre one. You still get 2 exhaust pipes, you still get this kind of race car style GT3 taillight, and you get the Supra badge. And the S is modelled on Versiphon, I believe it is, on the Nordschleife. That's a corner on a racetrack. Look, whoosh. Actually, before we check out the inside, let's look at the bonnet, which has 2 latches on it, which is apparently significant, Tada-san told me, because that's a learning from the AE80, the classic Toyota drift monster, and apparently the guy that designed that was his mentor and said, yeah, sports cars should have 2 bonnet latches. So this does as well, or is it just because that's how BMWs come? Anyway, here it is, the star of the show. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder single turbo engine, and it's really quite far back towards the firewall as well, so it's a quite impressive thing. They've done it obviously for weight distribution to make it feel sporty. It's got 258 horsepower, 400 newton meters of torque, so that's 100 newton meters less than the 3-litre and 77 horsepower less. The 3-litre is 335 horsepower, I think. But anyway, they have identical bore and stroke if you care about such things, because it's BMW's modular engine design, and this has appeared in BMW's Minis and even I think the Morgan Plus 4. So yeah, Morgan shares an engine with a Toyota. Slightly weird world. But anyway, let's have a look inside and then we'll go for a drive. I'll promise you we will go for a drive soon. It has got dead leaves in it, that's kind of my fault. There's actually quite a lot of room down there. You can see all the way around it. You can tell this was designed for a much longer engine than is in this. I wonder if they could stick a Lexus V8 in it. That would be fun, wouldn't it? 2JZ, yo! Right, you'll have to forgive the slightly weird Pornhubby angle for this because it's a bit cramped in here. The interior of the Supra is a little bit drab, and to be honest, the nice bits are all the BMW bits, such as the touchscreen iDrive infotainment system. You've got a wibbly knob here to do all your stuff, and it does have wireless Apple CarPlay, so it's all good. And to be honest, the infotainment is fine. The speakers are a little bit tinny and a little bit weedy. I wish there was a thumping option. There might be actually. I will stick that in if there is a better speaker option. If there is, do go for it. Steering wheel is just a round, rubbery, leathery thing. It's fine. Plastic shift paddles. This costs under £50,000, so it doesn't have to abide by my rule. And the dash is quite straightforward. It's dead simple. Let me fire it up and you can see, there you go. It's got some digital bits on it, such as the rev needle and the speedo and the gauges, but everything else is kind of just normal. It's nothing particularly fancy, and I think that's half the reason this car hasn't actually been all that popular, because a Porsche for the same money feels a lot nicer inside. Let's talk about practicality things for a second. You've got a little tray for your phone down here. It's not wireless charging, and you've got a single USB there. You've got the button to switch between normal and sport modes, which are the only real driving modes on this. There is an individual one that you can customize though, and you can take your stability control on, off, or put it in the middle mode there. Start button there, and if I want to do the pokey thing, this is all softish, but also at the same time slightly firm. It's got a semi is what it's got. The seats are really quite comfortable. I quite like them. But one thing you do have to be careful of is hitting your head when you get out. Look, if I open this door, the door opens, but obviously the roof is still there, and that comes to the bottom of my ear, so I have to really fold myself in and out this car. Worth bearing in mind if you're tall. Has got cutouts in the roof for helmets for taking it on track. I did take this on track, but with the helmet on I did struggle to fit in. I had kind of slouched like in a Ford GT, so you can say your Supra's got that in common. But anyway, that's definitely enough of waffle from the inside. Let's go for a drive and see if the 2 litre is magical like all the journalists say it is. Right, I've ducked down into the Toyota Supra. Let's go for a drive, foot on the brake, hit the engine start button, and it kind of grumbles into life. It hasn't got the expressive noise of the 6-cylinder. Into gear, fan off, so I sweat but you can hear me. And the first thing you notice as soon as you get in this car is how far back you are sitting. The bonnet just disappears into the distance in like the fog of war. It's out there somewhere at the end of this car. The windscreen is like being in, well, I would say a Panzer, but this is the Japanese version of the Z4, so it's probably a Hargo. Look it up. Anyway, pulling away is dead simple. It's very easy to drive. The 8-speed automatic gearbox shifts really smoothly. It is a bit jiggly. You got adaptive dampers with 2 settings, got sport or normal. I'm in normal, and it is sports car firm. It's not horrible, it doesn't break your back, but it's no luxurious sedan, that is for sure. I'll get on some motorway in a bit, and I will get to twisty roads really quickly because I know that's what you really care about with this car. But otherwise, visibility out is it's a bit bad over the shoulder. The back window is pretty small. Mirrors are fine. You could live with it. You could reverse it out of garages, things like that. And you've got reversing camera to help you out anyway. But yeah, let's get to a fast road. I'll do a tiny bit of motorway first, just to tell you that it's all right on a motorway. It's all right on a motorway. And then we'll get some twisty roads where we can push it a bit and see if it does feel different to the 3 litre. It does. Oh, and before I forget, I've been getting about 35 mpg average. You could get better. I've been lead-footing it a little bit. Right, let's go. In the interests of furthering humanity's knowledge of the Toyota Supra, let's do 70 miles an hour around the outside of this old bus and see what it feels like on a motorway. That wasn't 70 miles an hour. This is 70 miles an hour. So, as a motorway cruiser, could you live with a Toyota Supra? Yes. I'm in normal mode and it shuffles you into 8th gear as soon as possible. And yeah, I mean, It's quite a lot of tyre noise from the back end, but you get that in anything. I think it's better than a Cayman in that respect. It's actually a bit quieter, but you know, it's not a necessarily very relaxing car, but you could do big distances, get used to it, and you could still have a conversation and hear your music. Again, wish the speakers were a bit better, a bit more powerful. Right, enough of sensible stuff, let's do twisty road sportiness. Now, as I tried to tell the man from HSBC every month when he nags me about my overdraft, I don't believe in numbers, man, they're for communists or something. But anyway, the figures of this car are important. 0 to 62 in 5.2 seconds. That's about a second slower than the 3 litre, which does it in 4.3. But let's do launch control. There we go. Big thump from the gearbox, and that is 60 miles an hour. It's got an electrically controlled limited slip diff to help you put the power down. I quite like how simple it is to set up. You've got one button to put it in sport mode and another to slacken the stability control off but not turn it off entirely, and you do have to press that to do launch control. But yeah, we're getting out to a corner on a twisty road, and I already feel more confident than I ever did in the 3 litre, which I found just had almost too much torque for the rear tyres. I know 335 horsepower wasn't loads, but the torque came in so early that you would be batting the traction control light into action in 3rd gear on a smooth bit of tarmacs. So when things got bumpy, as they tend to do in the UK, it was sweaty palms. I didn't really enjoy driving it quickly, that 3 litre Supra. This one, I feel much more comfortable driving quickly. Lean on the front end, feel the body lean, it's not super stiff, so you do get some sense of roll. And that gives you an idea of how much grip you've got, and you can meter out the power on the corner exit, and you can get on the power earlier because the engine isn't completely trying to melt the rear tyres. Now, you can still, if you're a child, apparently, skid it around a bit, but in the dry, it's not going to do it and catch you unawares. You're going to be trying to do it when you do it, if that makes sense. Whereas the 3 litre one would sometimes go, oh, unexpected sideways, I'm not a fan of. Me no hero, me like to get home to kids and, you know, talk like a northerner. Anyway, there we go. Basically, I like it because it's got more rear end grip. I think it points into corners a bit better than the 3 litre, and there's less sense of weight over the front axle. Normally, people that say that sort of thing are boring and they talk to you through windscreens to a camera on the bonnet, which is just weird. But anyway, it is true. I think this just feels sharper to steer and a bit nicer to drive quickly and a bit more confidence inspiring. So if you can live with what is not the best noise, I would definitely get this over the 6-cylinder from a driving point of view. And that noise is the same fake honk I had it in my Mini Clubman John Cooper Works. Some videos up on the channel about that. Sounds like a Mini. I'm not sure that's a good thing. But anyway, that's more than enough waffle about how this drives. Vastly improved, lots of fun. Obviously being front engined, rear drive, hasn't got the same adjustability on the brakes as a mid-engined A110 or Cayman. But yeah, when this lets go, it's a bit more forgiving than those. And when it does let go, it's more forgiving than the 3 litre as well. I think this is the one to learn to drift in, if that's your thing. Anyway, enough waffle. I've already said enough waffle about waffling. Back to you, Tim, for some outro waffle. So in conclusion, do I think the 2 litre Toyota GR Supra is better than the 3 litre one? Are the journalists right? All of those weird men in their tweed? Yes, unfortunately, they are right. This is the better driver's car, at least if you're not a hero, if you are normal. For me, the 3 litre was a little bit twitchy and a bit scary with all that torque. You can push this harder. It's got a noticeably lighter and better front end. It kind of dives into corners with even more zest, and the 3 litre was hardly a slouch. I had more confidence in this. There are downsides. I still don't think it rides nicely enough to give you a connection with the road, if that makes sense. I feel a much greater sense of connection in French connection. I can't really say my words. I feel a much greater sense of connection in a Porsche Cayman or an Alpine A110 or something of that ilk, but this looks cooler than either of them. To me at least, and you get 1 million mpg. It looks cool, it's Japanesey, and all the other good stuff. And if you're going to buy a Supra, do drive both of them. Obviously the 6-cylinder sounds better, but I think this is actually the better car to live with, so go and buy one if you want a Supra. Otherwise get a Porsche. Anyway, if this has been useful, hit like. If it's been hopeless, hit like. If you hate me, hit like, and also comment and subscribe to my channel as well, and my motorbike channel, Tim Rodey Rides Motorbikes. I'm doing some cool stuff on there as well. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon when I haven't got bees up my trousers. Goodbye.